check out Cajun Lights, your complete dog hunting outfitter. Tracking equipment, leashes, collars, dog supplies, and much, much more. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. And don't forget their outstanding lineup of lights. You can find it all at CajunLights.com. Elite nutrition products are the hottest thing on the market right now for dog and horse owners. And Houndsman XP is a dealer. You can find all their products on our website at houndsmanxp.com. Over the past 5 years, you've tuned into this podcast, and I don't take it lightly. We have built a mutual trust. And when I recommend a product, it's because I believe in it, I use it, and I'm given my seal of approval for that. I'm putting my name on that. And with Elite Nutrition products, I do trust it. I do use it. I've seen great results with their essential dogs, their pre and probiotics, their tick-borne disease treatment. It's all natural. It's a great alternative to pharmaceuticals when used appropriately. If you expect extreme performance, you need Elite Nutrition. Available from houndsmanxp.com.
Hey everyone, I want to let you know about a new sponsor of the podcast, being Johnson Quail, and for nearly 30 years they produce premium Coturnix quail for falconers across the U.S. and Alaska. They're a small family-owned business trusted by the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Zoo, and the Cornell Raptor Program. I've now used these quail to feed my own birds, and they're pretty nice size, and they're aged around 35 to 37 days and around 8 ounces per bird. So they're nice, good quality birds, and they are fed with custom formulated feed and frozen with dry ice and packed well for shipment. So whether you need 60 birds or 6,000, they've got you covered. If you want to put in an order, call Kevin at 507-213-9005 or go to johnsonquail.com. And if you use the promo code Chronicles, you get 10% off your first order. Johnson Quail, trusted since 1995.
We go to this pond, go check it, and there's some ringnecks on it. Ringnecks are awesome. And so they all lined up back a ways, and I put my falcon up, and he wanders off in the storm, and I'm going, oh great, this is perfect. And then he comes back over. We run in, we flush the ducks, and he comes down and does a falcon enema on one, and carrot lands right in front of the crowd. Cheers, and I went, that doesn't happen.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And for the time being, I'm going to continue on, and we'll continue on as I can. There might be some gaps in weeks, there might not be, and for the time being, there might be a few more remote recordings that I have to do in order to keep things going, but we'll see. My plans fell through for attending the Arizona Falconers Association meet this past weekend, and I guess it's probably for the best that they did fall through. I was supposed to record this episode there, but now that in hindsight, I've been snowed in for the last couple days, it's probably best I didn't get a chance to go, because I probably would have come back to some deceased animals, and don't even know if I'd have been able to make it back to my house. So anyway, I was still able to work out this recording with Wayne remotely, and I was bummed that I couldn't do it in person, but I guess it's still better than nothing at all. So I am happy that I got a chance to talk to Wayne and about his experiences in falconry, and also some of his experiences living overseas in Taiwan, and what falconry was kind of like over there from what he saw, and lots of other cool stuff in this episode. So hope you enjoy it. We're going to jump right in as usual, and I hope you enjoy. Here we go. All right, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this today. I really wish you'd have gotten a chance to do this in person. I hate that my plans got completely and totally screwed up, but it's probably for the best anyway, because the weather here sucks, and I don't know if I could have made it home.
I know. I'm heading up to Illinois on Wednesday because I got a new grandson up there, and we're driving because I'm bringing the Merlin along with me, and oh, holy smokes, I'm a little nervous, but we'll see.
Yeah, what part of Illinois?
Western, right along the Mississippi River.
Okay, so kind of along the border. I got you.
Yeah, on the border of Iowa and Illinois. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so, I mean, I have to ask just because I missed out, unfortunately, and what was the meet like? Was it a good time?
It was a good time. There's a lot of good people and friendly people. We had people from some other states come in, and it was fun. It was fun. I enjoy it. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, I honestly have more fun. I'm sure you've heard me say this before on different episodes, but I prefer to actually just go to meets and not have birds, to be 100% honest. I like the social aspect, getting a chance to see people I don't hardly get to see ever, old friends, new friends, all that kind of stuff. And, while I've attended meets and flown birds and attended lots of meets and not flown birds, I find that meets are always organized chaos, and it can be a little stressful sometimes. And sometimes it's just more fun to just not have it and go and hang out with people.
Well, I brought 2 birds, and I only had game for one, really. But I put both birds into the lure flying thing, which was, one of them was a joke, but one of them won it, because merlins are pretty dynamic when they're stooping the lure. But no, and the other thing you miss, of course, is the banquet and the raffle and auction. Our president, Shannon, he's a professional auctioneer. He gets going. It is awesome. It is really fun to watch and listen. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, the guys that can do that, the legit, hey, whatever, all that kind of stuff. It's I always marvel at just
so fast.
Yeah, it's always amusing watching people do that. I'm just like, man, I don't know how they stumble all over themselves, but
he gets a little fueled with some alcohol, but other than that, it's awesome. It's just really good.
Nice. I'm assuming you guys have a nice raffle every meet.
Yeah, we do pretty well. I don't know the numbers of people there, but man, I think it was over 60 in the banquet.
Nice. Yeah, I really hated that I missed out on it, and it's over just something stupid too. And I won't go into that too much either. But I mean, I was supposed to be transporting a bird from one friend to another friend, and with the possibility of producing some potentially really nice hybrids in the future and all that. It looks like none of that's going to happen now because of a simple misunderstanding over dates and someone getting highly offended over the misunderstanding. So, it is what it is. I sometimes you just can't win for losing, especially with other falconers. So,
well, us falconers are very sensitive,
Very. What have been some of your experiences with that? You don't have to go into detail, and obviously we don't have to air a lot of dirty laundry, but I think this is something that I don't talk about this a whole lot with people, just in generalities even, but I think that it's important, especially for new people wanting to come into the sport, to kind of hear kind of some of the other interpersonal dynamics that happen with falconers in particular, because you're absolutely correct. We can be a very quick to bruise and sensitive bunch, especially whenever comments are made about birds, or even if they're just made in jest and whatever. Sometimes we can take things a little personal whenever, that's not even the intent.
I'm pretty easygoing in general, and so I haven't had a whole lot of issues with that. I did put on no, I didn't even put it on. It was someone else was putting on the field meet, and and some falconers were contacting me going, is there game there? Are you sure? And I'm going, dude, come to the meet and you figure it out. It was just, I was like, why are you so uptight about this whole thing? But yeah, my friend was putting it on, so I guess I was in the board of directors of the club at the time or something like that. Anyways, but that's about it. I think I've been free of that kind of issue mostly in my career of flying birds.
Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, you eventually, as a falconer, either find that you're one of a couple of different types of people. You're someone that loves the social aspect or someone that hates the social aspect of it all, and usually find that out pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, a lot of the, there are feelings and competition for slips and stuff like that that I try to avoid. When I lived in Southern California, coming up with duck slips was pretty thin, and I didn't want to really compete with the other guys, so I got into merlins, and that was plain fine. I had so much fun with merlins for about 16 years or so. Just merlins. I always have a bigger falcon or a hawk or something like that, and during that time, but I always flew a merlin because I was younger. I worry about myself now because when I get out there running with that merlin, I'm about to cough up a lung, and I give up, I think, a little too easy on trying to catch game. But I'm trying to figure it out as well right now. Well, I moved here to Arizona about 7 years ago, and I've flown a couple merlins here before this one. And I just really wanted to focus on how to really make it work here, because you got so much cover. Merlins, you have everything knows that they're going to get caught by the merlin if you're chasing them, and they bail, and getting doves not to fly 100 miles away and have your bird kill it someplace and have to track it down. That's always a trick. And so I'm just experimenting around trying to figure out what to do with this bird right now. I'm a little slow on the uptake. I'll admit that. But we're having fun. She's a sweet bird.
Well, do you? So are you primarily just hunting doves then, or are you quail also, or what?
Well, I wanted to try quail and see how it works. I know there's some people in New Mexico that are very successful with merlins on quail. I don't, with a dog and stuff. So I got a new dog, and I'm just working him. He's not, the merlin doesn't tolerate him right now. So I'm just getting out there and running around myself. And I haven't really focused much on getting the good quail slips and where to find them and stuff like that. So that's kind of the thing I want to look into. Might want to just get a Cooper's or something like that for the quail. But merlins are so sweet in general. I mean, holy smokes.
Yeah, the merlin falconry has been on my radar for a long time. I tried it briefly, and that ended up with an eaten bird. It was, kind of a bummer of an experience. So I just decided that until I had like a definitive plan in place and, my circumstances changed a little bit, I probably wouldn't try it again. But
a lot of it just is like getting out and trying it, though. I've noticed and I've learned over the years how everything wants to eat a merlin, eat them or steal their food or whatever. But and so I don't usually try to keep them from carrying, because for their own safety's sake. But and I've only had one merlin get killed and eaten, and that was a hand-me-down IS merlin that was screaming like a banshee, but she was weird, man. Stooped the lure really well, but when she'd come down to the lure, she'd just sit there and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. And I I'd get down on one knee. She'd bring the lure over underneath me to hide there and still scream and scream and scream and not even start eating anything until I started molesting her with my hands. I started touching her and grabbing her in the back, and then she'd start eating. I thought, well, this might be good for breeding in the future. And then one day she flew up on the top of a eucalyptus tree, sat there screaming and screaming and screaming. And I couldn't believe it, but this red tail starts soaring beneath her. And then all of a sudden, swoop, right up and pulls her right out of the tree. I went, oh, dang, that's not cool. So anyways, that's the only one I've had get eaten. Most of them have been chased multiple times. I had one that solid black female that I could pick her up off a grasshopper. I mean, she was really good. Mostly she was good at caching too. She caught the sparrow and I went down to pick her up and she took off. And I thought, what's up with this? And then this Tiercel peregrine comes over my shoulder, shoo, and starts grabbing the sparrow out of her feet. And she wouldn't let go. I was going, you stupid, let go. But she didn't let go, and the peregrine broke off, and she went off and into a neighborhood and hid under the eaves of some house and ate it. They manage. I've had a lot of falconers say, I love merlins, but they're more work than they're worth. And I feel bad for that because I really think, putting a lot of work into it is fun too. Figuring out what they like to hunt, how they like to hunt. That's so fun.
Well, and I mean, people say the same thing. You'll hear people say the same thing on almost, every species. I mean, with the exception of your most common ones, I think. Right. I mean, accipiters are the other big culprits for that. Yeah. I mean, I don't think goshawks are worth the what people put into them personally. But it's each their own. Right. I understand the appeal for all these different things. Cooper's hawks, goshawks, whatever the species is that you want to use as the example for that. There's always going to be somebody that's not their cup of tea. So right. I get it.
And I admire some of these falconers who really can tell you how to do a merlin or do another falcon. I know guys like Keith Richmond he can detail out what you need to do, all that stuff. When people ask me, I go, I don't know, figure it out. That's part of the fun of falconry is figuring out and trying to understand their behavior and how to modify it to fit into your falconry. But I've had many merlins that I didn't know what I was doing with them. I kept trying to fly sparrows with them, and I had this female Richardson's that she put in the effort, but she was never really there on the sparrows. And with females, they're mostly coursing, not like a jack that will kind of wait on above you and do the yo-yo stoops. And then one day I just decided, hey, Ella, I don't know why I thought this. Well, maybe she'll take pigeons. And so I went out with a pigeon, but first of all, I started working the sparrows, and then a female peregrine came in and started chasing her around. And I thought, yikes, I got this pigeon. I'll seal it, toss it up for the peregrine so it'll leave my merlin alone. So I did, and she came in and did a very half-hearted stoop on it and pulled up, and my merlin was right on that peregrine's tail, plowed into that pigeon. After that, I started doing these feral pigeons, from a distance, kind of like you do with the starlings and stuff. And she was very successful doing that. It was quite funny too, because she'd just follow this pigeon, just flying along, like not really pursuing, but just following them back and forth. And feral pigeons are home to that area, so you don't have too far a flight. It's not like with a dove. So they go around and around, and then the merlin would start putting on some speed, and you'd see the pigeons start to panic, and then she would latch onto them, and they'd just spiral to the ground. They'd always be dead by the time I got there.
Huh.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've heard that from a lot of other guys that are big Merlin guys too. Is it's just like if you try and get them on quarry that they don't want to be on, or you're taking them away from their comfort zone or what they're used to, or whatever the case is, you're just like fighting a losing battle, and losing a lot of potential for a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
setting yourself up for just a lot more frustration in that
Yeah.
way, because it's like they have it in their head what they want, and you're just a lot better off finding one that is already kind of hunting what you want to hunt, instead of trying to go against the grain and try and mold that Merlin to something that it doesn't want to be. But
Yeah. They don't but it's fun to learn. And if you're not going to be stubborn about it, see what they're into. Jacks are pretty easy that way. You know how they're going to like it. And they're going to like those little sparrows and stuff like that. It's pretty important to get a jack to cache for its own safety.
What's your preference? Do you prefer jacks, or do you prefer?
No, I don't have a preference. It depends on where I'm flying. Right now, I'm trying a female. I did a jack here, but he just would not cache, and so it didn't work out. I finally start flying them without telemetry. And sure enough, right when I did that, I was like, okay, bye-bye. He took off, and that was it.
Yeah, that would be tough, flying a Merlin without telemetry of any kind. It's almost a recipe for, losing one within, the first couple of flights or something. It
wasn't. I went for a while with telemetry on them, and it was such a pain. And then finally, I just said, well, here, no telemetry. Let's just see what happens. And yeah, it happened. So, but generally, I've never really, that's the only one I've really lost before. I was that Richardson's that I was flying for a long time. It was still one season. She was super tame and everything was cool. And so I had my son start flying her because well, you might want to, my career was in mostly international business. I was traveling overseas all the time. So my son got his license and was very helpful for me to leave birds with him. And he could keep them hood trained and keep them kind of level, so I wouldn't be going backwards a lot with their training. So I was going to have to be traveling overseas for a while. So I said, here, you can fly her, but you don't fly her with telemetry. So if you lose her, you lose her. That's fine. We'll let her go. And so he started flying her. And, this one day she chased a dove off into the distance, and we waited there for a while. And, you always don't wait long enough for Merlins. They do come back. It's pretty amazing. It's kind of magical. But I said, okay, she's gone. Well, let's go home. So we start driving, and then zippity, here she comes after our car. Get out, call her in. So by the end of the season, we just said, well, why don't we try molting her? But she didn't handle the free lofting in the chamber at all. So I just let her go. She was kind of freaking out in there, which kind of surprised me because she was pretty tame. Let my son handle her, me handle her, whoever. So anyways, yeah. Let me tell you a little bit how I got started in this.
Yeah, go for it.
Fun time that we have. I was a weird kid. Not the brightest bulb in the box, I'd say. But I did like when I was really young, like 8 or 9, I started reading these books my dad had on fly fishing in the East Coast on these streams and creeks. And that kind of thing was just had this romantic image in my head, going out there in the wild and and trying to catch fish. And then I got into birds. Got a bird book, reading about birds, and birds of prey were the coolest. So I decided, I asked my mom to drive me to the library, and I'd look up all the books on falcons. And right behind falcons is, in the card catalog, is Falconry. So I started reading some of these old English falconry books, and that hit me with the romantic idea of going out with a falcon and coming back, and in the management of the falcon and keeping it healthy, and the equipment and all that stuff. That just really hit me. And so the aesthetic appeal of falconry was really cool. And so I didn't know it was illegal. Of course, this was in early 70s. I trapped a kestrel, and then I let it go, and then I found out I needed to get a license. So I was only 14 at the time, and I talked to the game warden in town, and he was so cool. And he says, "Hey, your dad can just get the license, and you can fly the birds." And I think he was doing this because he was getting a lot of rehab birds, and he needed someone to take them and manage them or whatever. So I got my license at 14, took the test, and my dad's name was on it. And it was before apprenticeships. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then 16, I was going to get my own license. And I needed a sponsor. I didn't have one in the area, so I had my dad sponsor me. He had no experience, but at least he didn't call it falconry. He knew it was falconry. That's about as much as he knew about it, but he was very supportive. He took me to my first California Hawking Club meet in Los Banos. I think it was the first one there. And that opened my eyes tremendously to how I was really supposed to be doing falconry. So I got my license when I was 16 and kept going, but I really didn't have any mentors around me until 16. I think it was 16 when Herb Sparks moved into Ventura, California. I grew up in Ojai, California, and Herb was there, and he's a very experienced and knowledgeable falconer, and he helped me tremendously in my progression. And then I went to college at BYU in Utah, and so there Patrick Shane and Ricardo Velarde and some of these old guys there were just very helpful. Gerald Richards, he used to use me as a prop in his storytelling about how he was confronting fish and game, and he'd always yell right at an inch from my face, and I'd be sitting there. I knew he wasn't yelling at me, but it's still scary. And anyways, he helped me a lot as well. I flew my first long wing there, my female prairie, and she did pretty well. Anyway, I've had a blessed life. After that, I got my degree in Japanese, and I came back. I was trying to be a musician, and I was working. I got a little tiny studio, and I was, trying to hire it out and not doing very well. And I was married then. I am still married to the same person. And one day she said, "You need to get a real job." We had a couple kids by that time. And so as I was growing up, one of my friends that I used to hang out with was a guy named Yvon Chenard, and he owned a company called Chenard Equipment, making rock climbing equipment. And we used to climb together with Tom Frost, his partner. And but Yvon used to be a falconer. He was mentored by Tom Cade, and he was just a Southern California falconer who got into rock climbing and mountaineering because of getting into iris and stuff like that. But he kind of let the falconry go, but he was still involved. So I got a job there. And anyways, I just went to get a job, and it turned into a career. And when I first got the job, we had an all company meeting, and I went to the meeting. He goes, Yvonne says, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I go, "I work for you now." That's all. That's cool. Anyways, Yvon Chouinard owned a company called Patagonia and Chouinard Equipment. And in order to distance themselves from the liability of rock climbing and mountaineering equipment and the deeper pockets that Patagonia had, we did a ESOP, an employee stock option buyout of Chouinard Equipment, and made a company called Black Diamond Equipment. So I was the first purchasing manager for that company, and took it for about a year until Patagonia hired me over to work in their technical textile area, because all their technical textiles came from Japan, and they wanted me to go over there. Because I spoke Japanese and knew I got my degree in the history and literature and stuff like that. And I talked to the factory owners, and they said, "Hey, they started teaching me. They liked me. They took a liking to me." And so we got to, I got to learn, hands-on on technical textiles, and I certainly did not plan on going into textiles, but that's what I became. And it was great working at Patagonia because Yvonne was a falconer, and I could bring my birds in. I'd go out on my lunch hour, trap a bird, bring it back. Sometimes go out on my lunch hour and fly the sparrows, or ducks if I could find them with my big falcon. Anyways, it was really great. It was fun. That place was, if the surf was up, he'd get on the intercom. He goes, "The surf is up. The east winds are blowing. The waves are. It's good. Get out there." And I'd go, "Okay, cool." And I'd run out and grab my bird, and we'd go hawking, and everybody else would go surfing. And so that was a lot of fun, and it gave me a lot of opportunities. He was on the board of directors of the Peregrine Fund, so I got to meet all the Peregrine Fund guys. Kind of a funny story there. A Peregrine Fund guy named Carl Thielander, he lived in Ojai, and he lived right next door to my parents' house. Didn't know me. I didn't know him. But I built a breeding chamber out there and had some peregrines out there breeding. He was walking out in his backyard once, and he heard he chup, 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 chup. And he went over and peeked through the little peephole and saw, a female peregrine's chest right there. And so he called up Brian Walton up at Santa Cruz Bird Place and said, "Hey, who's breeding falcons in Ojai?" And he said, "Oh, that's Wayne." So at least he knew me. He could tell him. And so we became friends. And he was, gosh, I'm rambling. He was the curator of the Western Foundation for Vertebrate Zoology. And it was a collection of study skins and the largest private egg collection in the United States. And he let me come down and just go through the study skins because I was fanatical about merlins and trying to understand the identification and Richardson's, Columbarius, and Sucleis, and the Bendires, and the different little things that we tend to call different subspecies of merlins. It was a lot of fun. It was very very helpful for me in understanding how to identify birds, identify age of merlins and stuff like that. It was a good deal, and he was a great guy. But then I left Patagonia after 10 years and went working for some other textile and apparel companies, and they were all crazy. The people were crazy. I ended up in New Hampshire and then working for a bunch of crazy people company called EMS, and I borrowed a Harris hawk from my friend who did bird abatement back there at JFK, and I go out in the freezing snow and follow pheasant tracks, and we try to catch. We caught 2 pheasants, whoop-de-doo, but that was fun. But I was only there for about a year, and then they fired me because they're crazy. At least that's what. But then I started thinking, wait a second, you're working for multiple crazy people. You better look at yourself, boy. Maybe you're the problem. And then I got hired by Columbia Sportswear, and I went, oh no, they were crazy. It was them. It wasn't me. So we have been living in Oregon, working at Columbia Sportswear, and for about 4 years until I developed some new technologies, and they really took off. And the owner said, let's make an innovation department. So I did that. It was right when we were empty nesting, sent our youngest daughter off to college, and we moved to Taiwan. And I worked with the factories over there and worked in the mills and did all that stuff. So I didn't do falconry during that time, although I met a bunch of falconers there, got pretty close with them, and they're awesome. They are awesome people. And pretty dang good with accipiters, man. They're training these goshawks. It's hot and humid, and they're keeping them healthy, and they're keeping them super tame, and there's people everywhere, of course. Do pretty well. Then I came back, and when I got back, before I went, I was flying some peregrines up in Oregon and doing some duck hawking, and I came back and I got appeals, Tiercel, and a gerfalcon. And every month that fall, I was still going overseas to Asia to work on this one project that I was developing. And it should not have been successful, but we were. And the peals did start catching ducks. The gerfalcon did too. But it was a great learning time again for me. But then after about, I don't know how many years. After 3 years in Taiwan, we came back, and then we were here until 2019, in Oregon until 2019. Then we moved down to Arizona because I said, hey, I'm always working overseas, and it's just too gloomy and not, you need some sunlight. You need some of that vitamin D. So we moved down here, and then COVID happened, and I wasn't traveling again, but I was working remotely. And then I just retired last April. Yes. I'm loving it. I'm not totally accustomed to it. I still feel a little guilty when I'm off for long periods of time doing stuff, but
why?
Pretty good.
Why?
I don't know. Responsibility, I guess. I don't know. I'm not that good of a guy, but
I understand, though. I mean, I know I'm the type of personality that, well, like take yesterday, for example. I for whatever reason, it just the whole day, sitting around, couldn't really do much, snowed in.
Yeah.
What can you really do, right? And I'm sitting there the whole time, and it just feels weird not being productive or not working on something, or not that I didn't even really have anything to work on. So finally, I was like, okay, well, I went ahead and did my cardio for an hour on the elliptical out in my pole barn, and then after that, I was just like, well, what can I do? There's got to be something that I could get done while I'm doing literally nothing besides binging, shows on Amazon Prime or whatever, and so I'm just like, oh, wait a second, I remembered my YouTube channel for the podcast. I mean, man, I need to replace a lot of those, artwork banners for the episodes that I haven't done yet. So literally for like 5 or 6 hours, like almost till 1 a.m. this morning. I was on replacing all of those, like 100 and something of those banners that I hadn't done yet. And then I was just like, okay, well, that was something. I guess I don't, whatever, but I understand, I think though that by the time I get to retirement, if I ever get there, I won't feel guilty about it.
Well, I shouldn't. And I shouldn't. I got no reason really to. I did some good work, and I have a lot of patents in my name, and the company still likes me. They still like me. A matter of fact, it wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks ago. I went up there. I did a road trip hawking and through California and up to Oregon. We got fogged out in Oregon, but had good visit with my old lab people and stuff. A lot of fun. Good times. I had a funny little story when I was flying the Falcon and the Peregrine up there. The owner of the company, Tim Boyle, is an avid duck hunter, and we've talked occasionally, and he was during the North American sales meeting was going on, and he was walking out of my building, and I said, "Hey Tim, you want to see my falcons? I got to go feed the juror." I would bring them in with me to work, and if I had time, I'd slip out, and I had a good duck slip about 15 minutes away. So I do that, but today wasn't going to be one of those days. And so I went out, and I saw him. I said, "Hey, you want to see my birds?" He goes, Yeah, I want to see your birds. So we came over, and I took out, she was a pretty silver jur, on the lighter side of silver, and 1,500 grams, good sized bird, very impressive. Typically I feed them quail and some parts of pigeons and stuff like that. But I had some day-old chicks. So I thought, well, just do this day-old chick. I hate how messy they are and stuff like that. But so I start to feed her. I give her a day-old chick, and she bends down. He's bending in really close. She bites into this chick and just explodes it all over my boss, the owner of Columbia, and it's during the North American sales meeting. So he's got all these meetings he's got to go to. He's got all this blood and yolk on him now. I just went, oh no, that didn't just happen. It became a great story. He loved it. He thought that was the best thing that happened. He told me, when I put this shirt on today, I thought, this is the last time I'm going to wear this shirt. It sure is.
Well, at least it turned out in your benefit as opposed to.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. It's funny how some of those things that you think are just going to turn out to be absolute disasters sometimes work out in your favor. But yeah. Yeah,
I was lucky again, but man, was I scared when that happened. No.
Well, before we go any further, you kind of brushed over it, and just that kind of synopsis of the timeline of your career and everything. And I am curious though, like what were some of your other impressions of living, in Taiwan and your time over there, and if you had wanted to, would it have been possible for you to be able to practice as someone that's not like a native to the country or whatever?
Yeah. When I got there was no real laws. They didn't have a license system or anything like that. There were laws about what birds you could fly, and a lot of these guys. I'll say it. A lot of these guys were flying these crested goshawks that were over 40 or 50 years old, according to the government. Because when they made these laws, they'd say, okay, if you have one, you can keep it. And you have to have this permit that you would get that had a picture of the bird and that, when it was captured and when you got it and how long you'd had it and stuff like that. Well, those things were selling those permits. And so they'd have a second year bird that was actually 45 years old, according to the permit.
I gotcha.
But they got it turned around. So now, they got some good regulations in there now, but they were importing Finnish goshawks and Harris hawks. And it was very eye-opening on how good we have it here in the States. I went on one-day trips where I'd fly from we fly birds from Taipei all the way to the south in not Tainan, but to Kaohsiung, and which is further south than Tainan. Anyways, a great bunch of guys, just awesome. But some things, kind of hit me. Like they would go into fields and these, well, in Japanese we call them tambo. It's the rice fields. They go into these rice fields and start walking around and flushing these mud hens out of it. And the mud hens are great flights. They get up. They're not fast, but they get up and fly. And so you get these rising flights, and it's pretty cool. But they'd go out there with multiple Harris hawks and goshawks all at once and just slay these guys over and over again. So, you go, holy smokes. But when they go out in these fields, I'd say, so do you know these farmers? And they go, no. I said, well, aren't they going to be mad about you going through their fields? And he says, well, if they come up and say, hey, what are you doing? We'll just say, we're just hunting. And they'll go, okay. And, they got me kind of nervous when they were trying to do slips on herons and things like that. And I, U.S. mentality, I'm going, you can't do that. But it was a little freer. And now they've really gotten into some long wings. They got beautiful, they get the Japanese peregrines down there and they trap those a lot, but they're also breeding brookie eyes now. And there's some Ernestes that are in that country, and they're awesome. They're beautiful birds. And they're hunting pheasants. They have some wild pheasants that are down in the south of the island, place called Hualien, and they got rabbits down there too. But these guys are pretty hardcore. They have to drive pretty far to get into the pheasants. But that was going to be one of my next questions for you too. On that is it like over there? Is it like some of these other countries, like Mexico, for example, where you have to kind of be wealthy in order to practice, or is it kind of just to do all income, Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. All up and down. There's wealthy people doing it, and there's just, little salary men that are not, wealthy that can do it. And they get out and they hustle. They hustle for their game. And, we complain if I have, I'm driving an hour or something like this. These guys drive at least 4 to 6 hours one way. They go down, spend the night, and do some game hawking down in the south. And I admire them. They're good falconers. What they do with accipiters, I'm just like, awe with how calm they are and how they handle that hot and humid weather. And they're just very impressive.
Yeah. Well, and I know that, some accipiters in different countries actually have a much more mild temperament compared to some of our, more high strung species and stuff too, and everything.
Yeah.
But, I know that there's always exceptions to the rule, but, in some countries you have to be predominantly in kind of a certain income range to be able to practice and stuff. But I was just curious how it was over there in that regard.
They're not that way. And, sometimes I'd ask these guys, so is it legal to trap peregrines here? No, you can't do it. Well, what if you get caught with one? They say, well, I just have telemetry on it. And I just say, I'm just letting it go. And they'll let it go. And the law enforcement people would drive away and then they'd call it back in.
Okay.
So it's not as free as the States, but then again, it's more free. It's an interesting situation over there, and I don't know if I would. I couldn't do it while I was working there because I was not only working in Taiwan, I was working all over Asia. I was traveling all the time, and I didn't want to. I was living in an apartment, and so I just went out with my buddies and go hawking. And but they're way hardcore. They put in the time and the effort. They're great.
There's hardcore guys everywhere. I've noticed that it doesn't matter where you're at. There's always some guys that are just way more about it than others, and it really is funny how falconry is so much different, but it's all the same everywhere, no matter where you go. In a lot of ways. Right.
I remember the first time I went out with all these guys, a whole bunch of them, and I just took a picture and I said, and I don't know if I posted it on Facebook or something like that, but it was like, look, everybody's the same. Half the guys are standing there with a beer and the others, got these birds and they're looking for a slip and everybody else is just standing around. It was just like back home,
Yep. 100%. There's always going to be people that also take themselves way too seriously. Other guys that don't take themselves seriously at all personalities, all shapes and sizes.
Well, and it can be a little bit of the Wild Wild West outlawish type of things. I remember pigeon racing there is huge. You should see the lofts they have. They're amazing. They're like little castles.
It's huge in Asian countries in general, especially in China and stuff.
And one of the guys, he was one of the more wealthy guys, but he had one of his pigeons bird napped, and the person sent him a what do you call that? A ransom letter. And I said, well, what did he do? Did he call the police? He goes, no, he took care of it. He'll take care of it. With a little nod and a wink and a nod. And yeah. A little, but anyways, that was a wonderful 3 years. It was really fun.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. I'm always envious of some of these guys that get a chance to spend prolonged amounts of times overseas and experiencing different cultures and things like that. As privileged as I feel to be. Yeah. I mean, as privileged as I feel about being able to do what I've done, I just get snapshots. I don't really get a chance to feel immersed at all, which in some ways I don't mind, but in others I'm like, man, I could really see myself staying here for a while.
Yeah.
And it's always cool to hear people's stories that get a chance to be a place for a while and really just kind of, like I said, get immersed in it and experience it. So
sometimes you get to some place and you're a foreigner and people treat you a certain way, and then you don't really see how things really play out normally. It's good to be able to sit around and just hang out with the guys.
I'm sure
you get to see that.
I'm sure. So, I mean, out of all the species that you've had a chance to fly so far in your career, I mean, is your preference the Merlin, or is pretty much, your number one?
Yeah, the Merlin. I love all long wings. I really do. My best dove hawk was a Tiercel Prairie. I love that bird. I love the peregrines and the jurs, and I've flown, peals and autumns and autumns and peals. I haven't flown a tundra yet.
Okay.
And right now, the peals I have is the son of one of my favorite peals I had. He was a machine. I flew him only for 5 years before we put him into breeding. He was great. My peals right now is a typical peals. He hates me here around the house. When we're out in the field, he's great. He's not a biter. He's not anything like. He's a good bird.
Mm-hmm.
But around the house, it's like he's wild. Look, get away from me! Get away from me! But yeah. So I like all the long wings. I like everything. Let me just put that out there. I like. I flew Coopers when I was younger, and yeah, they attacked me. I've only worked with 2 Gosses. I was successful with one. The other one, I transferred out because I was traveling too much. And accipiters, for me, unfortunately, because I was traveling so much, they didn't fit in. Harris's, they were good because I could come back from a business trip, pick them up the next morning and go hunting, and the Falcons are a lot more forgiving in their personality, and Merlins were that way for me. They're delicate. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have my son around. And there were times when I didn't have my son around, so I wasn't flying Merlins, but.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I want to ask you too, because you've obviously experienced this in your long time in falconry, but I mean, was it difficult for you to kind of come to terms with the fact that you couldn't do it for a while whenever you did kind of have to give it up for a bit because of work and your career and stuff? Or
yeah, I guess not. I didn't ever feel that way. I was always jonesing for it. I would, you ask my wife, I was watching videos when we had YouTube, or I was reading books over and over. She goes, "Hey, haven't you read that book already?" Yeah, I have. But but I was fine. So I wasn't too crazy about that side. I wrote a little article for American Falconry magazine many years ago. And, I can't even remember exactly all the stuff I talked about, but I was talking about the 3 types of falconers that I was identifying. One was the dirt bag. And that's, I got that term from when I was working at Patagonia, because he liked dirt bags, guys that just, lived out of their car and flew hawks, or climbed in his case, or in my case, it was flying birds. They everything went to the side to fly the birds. There was some brilliant falconers who literally lived out of their car for this falconry season and flew birds. And then there was the I think I call them temporary dirt bags, and those were the guys who had a career, had to make things work, and worked up enough seniority, at least, that they could take a week off at a time. They go on week-long trips and go hunting, but most of the time they're going. I have a good friend and he worked in the city in San Francisco, and he could only fly really on the weekends, but his birds were tremendous. Very, very good falconer and good flying birds. And then the other one was the POEs. Plenty of excuses. My bird's fat, it's still molting, things like that.
Uh-huh.
My bird's molting, they bring it to a field meet. You go, what? Are you flying it? No, it's molting. I go, what? What kind of? Don't take a molting bird that you don't. I just got, anyways. Yeah, I guess I did, even though I consider myself easygoing, I have some very strong opinions about things like hooding. like game hawking is just like I wouldn't wait till my birds were completely done with the molt. I couldn't wait sometimes. It just, I had to get going.
Yeah.
And they're fine.
Yeah. No, and the reason I ask is because, just based on, different happenings and life and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've kind of been struggling a little bit myself with just, man, it's just like there's certain times where in your life with different things that are going on, it just feels like you're constantly, going against the current, against the grain and stuff. And I'm kind of like every passing day, it almost feels like, it's like, man, what are you doing? Like it's almost kind of one of those deals where you kind of know what you need to do, but you're kind of in denial for a while. Like I'm in that stage. It is kind of,
Hey, okay. So let me point out very strongly, I have had some crappy seasons.
Yeah.
Where things just didn't happen.
Sure.
Life can be long, I'm not that old, but you can, you got time. There's things will pan out.
Yeah.
And the little experience, I admire you and all the work you're doing. That's really, I think it's very important. I really do. I think that's awesome.
I appreciate it.
Good. Well, I mean it.
No, thank you.
But otherwise, there's times when I didn't have a good season. Things weren't working out. I usually didn't keep birds through those seasons, but sometimes I did.
Yeah. Well, and I've been trying to, try other things out also between, presentations, even a little abatement, odds and ends type stuff. And the more as more times kind of things are starting to sort themselves out and declare themselves a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily make the coming to terms with that any easier per se. But, it's something I like to ask occasionally is, someone that's been in it as long as you have, and some of the other guys that I've talked to in kind of the same boat, been in this a long time. It always seems like there is a phase in life where they have to either temporarily give it up for a bit, or sometimes they just end up giving it up almost completely. And sometimes they get back into it later in life. Sometimes they don't. But I was just kind of wondering, because I'm in a little bit of a stage in that where I'm just kind of like trying to figure out if this is something I need to kind of put on the shelf for a little while, as far as just personal falconry and stuff, let life figure itself out for a year or two and see what happens. Or, so I always get people's opinions and thoughts on that, because some people, man, just like you said, your dirt bags, for example, I mean, they absolutely live for it, fiend for it. It defines their life.
Yeah.
And while I think this is a big part of my life, I don't necessarily think it defines my life.
I think that's a very healthy attitude. Some people might say that falconry defines me, but I don't think it does. I mean, I've got 12 grandkids, family.
Man, that's a lot of grandkids.
I got one more coming.
Nice.
The lucky 13 there.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, so, once again, I like getting people's thoughts and perspectives on that kind of stuff. I think it's dangerous. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's falconry or whatever, letting yourself kind of get pigeonholed into completely tying your identity into a thing per se.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I guess depending on what that thing is, for some people, it's better than some of the alternatives they can let consume their life, I guess. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think it's unhealthy what we do here.
Well,
honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I'm not going to say it hasn't been for some people, but but everybody's lives are different. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's before we kind of start to wrap this up a little bit. I mean, you've been listening for a while. You know the routine, the drill. I mean, you've already told some cool stories, but is there a favorite hunting experience or a favorite memory of a bird that sticks out in your mind? You haven't talked about or mentioned yet that's worth sharing, or?
Yeah, I got a couple that let me do. First one, the anti Murphy's Law experience I had, where I was at an Oregon field meet, and it was typically Oregon, and it was raining hard, and it was stormy, and everybody sat around the meet place going, "I'm not going to fly in this. I'm not going to fly." But I'm, like I said, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, so I had my Peels was in his first year. This is just after we got back from Taiwan. And I went out I said, well, I want to fly. I need a duck slip. So one guy says, I got a duck slip for you. And so we loaded up. And as you know, sometimes you get a caravan of people following you. So we go there, which is always a bad idea. We go to this pond, we go check it, and there's some ringnecks on it. Ringnecks are awesome. And so they all lined up back a ways, and I put my falcon up, and he wanders off in the storm, and I'm going, oh great, this is perfect. And then he comes back over, we run in, we flush the ducks, and he comes down and does a falcon enema on one, and lands right in front of the crowd. Cheers, and I went, that doesn't happen. Okay, so I like that one. That was a good one. And then that same period of time was a couple years later. I actually was with my my friend from Taiwan came over to do kind of several week hunting trips through the United States, and we went down to the California field meet. But before going there, I stopped at my best friend's house, and he's got all sorts of duck ponds around there in Oregon. And we checked this pond. It was a small pond, but there was a mixed group of mallards and the little tiny black duck, buffleheads. And I thought, okay, the buffles, they'll stay on the pond. The buffies, they'll stay right there. So I put the gerfalcon up, so there's this B-52 flying over this pond. She wasn't terribly high, but 400, 500 feet. And I don't know if you've ever seen a gerfalcon fly, and where they fly, they don't mount in like a peregrine in circles. They'll go out, a quarter mile and come back the whole time climbing. So she's up there. I go in and I flush these ducks, and I had a few people with me, including that guy from Taiwan. And she comes down, and lo and behold, the buffies got up with the mallards. And she comes in and she just snatches a buffy out of the air and just keeps flying around like nothing had happened. She's just flying around with this poor little duck in her foot. She flies off across the field and lands, and in comes a red tail, and that red tail and her get into a little bit of a tussle, and she chases that red tail away. And we're running across this field, and we get to halfway across, she starts coming back, and I just call her in and fed her up, and we walked over and found the little buffle head dead, but not a mark on it, just that we could see. It was just, but she had caught it and just flown around forever. Well, the very next year, she had a thing for red tails then. And I did a bad mistake. She'd see a red tail half a mile or a mile away and take off after it and just start beating the snot out of it. And I'd get over there and call her in and feed her up, and we'd go back to work or something like that. And I realized every time I go out with her, I got this great picture. I'm up at my friend Dave Jameson's house, his properties up in the northern Nevada, and it's beautiful, pristine. And I'm walking out there with this falcon on my fist, and from the back, you can see her looking to the back, and I know exactly what was going on there because she was looking at these two red tails, and as soon as I let her go, she went over and beat the snot out of them for a while and totally blew the slip. So I had trained her to go beat up red tails accidentally. And anyway, she went into breeding after that season. So,
well, sometimes that's what you got to do.
Yeah, I didn't correct that behavior at all. So I don't know what I would have done, but poor red tails. She never killed one, so that was good. But I used to joke when she would take off, it would change the weather because she was so powerful. Such a fun thing to do.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, it's better than having a bird killed by one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I had a lot killed by red tails, none by eagles, but a lot of red tails have killed my birds.
I've heard almost equal amount of stories of both. Even I would still say, actually, no, I'll take that back. I think it still leans more towards red tails.
Yeah,
with killing.
For me, it is for sure. But I was flying in Southern California, and they killed quite a few of my birds.
Yeah. I mean, it happens, especially with micro guys that live more out west. It seems to be more, endemic, I guess. But.
Well, or just peregrines. I had a peregrine get killed by one, and I had another peregrine get grabbed in the head and puncture its eye, just killed. Made it one-eyed bird.
Yeah,
not good.
Yeah. Well, it's never fun. Doesn't matter if it's a Cooper's on a kestrel or a red tail on a merlin or whatever the case. And it's never fun.
Yeah,
but. Well, I guess we can go ahead and get your piece of advice then too, and then
I should have been thinking about that.
Wrap this up. But I mean, you've already given some, kind of inadvertently. But.
Yeah. So what's my advice? Oh, this is my advice. Okay, here it is. All right. Best advice. Figure it out. It's fun to figure it out. When you are having a challenge, figure it out. That's what falconry is about, is just figuring it out, because can't do it exactly the same every time. They're all individuals. And have fun figuring out. That's part of it. That's one of the adventures you have.
For sure.
That's it.
Short, sweet, and to the point. Nice.
Oh.
Nice. Very good. Well, I really wish once again that we could have done this past weekend. I really wanted to see quite a few people that were going to be at that meet. My heart was set on it, and I was mentally prepared to make the couple of 23-hour drives within, a 5-day span or whatever to make it happen.
Yeah, I know. You're still young. I guess you can.
It gets harder. It gets harder every year.
I got one of those cushions that has a little hole for my tailbone, because those 14-hour flights to Asia and stuff just kill you.
Yeah,
man.
Oh yeah. I thought about going ahead and investing in one of those, whatever they're called. They've got a special name for them, and the ones that are kind of contoured to your butt cheeks and stuff.
Yeah. With the little spot for your tailbone.
Yep.
You sound like an old guy.
Well, I'm still young by some standards, I guess, but I ain't exactly a spring chicken anymore yet either. So, but yeah, no, but either way, I'm glad that we could do this and, at least get introduced for hopefully whenever there'll be a time for that in person. Recording.
Oh,
so.
I look forward to it. I hope to go to a NAFA meet this next year. I was going to go this year, but then I had some wedding things and some, I don't know, the kid things,
Right there with you. I planned on going this year too. And just like I planned on going to a lot of stuff, and, life just, 2025 just crapped all over a lot of, just took a big giant dump over a lot of my plans, unfortunately.
Well, keep on playing. Remember, it's not hoarding. if it's guitars too.
Yeah. Well, very, very much so. I don't know. I'll try and turn the computer just a little bit here. Hold on just 1 second. I'll show you my, let's see if I can, there you go. You can kind of see that, the frame there.
Good,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So.
I have a condition called GAS, guitar acquisition syndrome. I sure love it.
Nice. Yeah. Well, to each their own. I have enough expensive hobbies, and two of those bases were customs, and probably cost more than a lot of people's cars.
Oh yeah.
We all go through our vices, I guess.
Right.
So, but
all right. Well,
Well, I appreciate you again, Wayne. Go ahead. Stay on for a few more minutes and let these files upload here, and I'll go ahead and end the recording, and we'll talk again soon, hopefully.
Roger that.